Welcome to Full Throttle Talk, the podcast where horsepower meets conversation. From supercars to classic legends, high revving tech to motorsport mayhem, we cover it all. Straight from the driver's seat, whether you're a gearhead or racer or just love the thrill of the open road, you're in the right place. Buckle up, hit the gas, and let's go full throttle into today's episode.
Welcome to Full Throttle Talk. I'm Paul Kramer, owner of Auto Kennel, and I'm stepping in for our normal awesome host, Tim Harris, who is doing his hillbilly car tour or something like that in North Carolina. If he hasn't been eaten by bears, he might be distilling moonshine out of the back of one of his Ferraris, because I guess that's what you do in a hillbilly thing. Also joining us today is our normal crew of Casey Parkin, owner of Group C Curation, and Dave Van Epps, owner of Sonderworks. So, hey guys, how you doing?
Hello, Paul. How are you,
Awesome.
buddy?
Good.
Morning, buddy.
Good.
Good to see
Morning.
you guys.
So let's start off with what you guys did this weekend. If anything fun car related, why don't we start with you, Dave? What was going on this weekend? And I think you're meeting Tim later today or tomorrow or whenever.
Yeah, tomorrow. The Hillbilly Tour passes through Charlotte here, and he's stopping. I think probably wants to visit his RS tribute as well. So we'll have that all shined up and ready for him as we're doing some work on that. But the weekend was kind of a Porsche weekend. Not surprising, of course, but the Porsche dealer here in town, one of the two Porsche dealers, Hendrick, has an event called Stuttgart Saturday, and it's a big gathering. There's probably 100 cars that show up, all ilk sizes. The car behind me here, if you're watching on, oh, hang on, there we go, is a GT3 RS, brand new Manti package that was added to this. To me, this was one of the key cars that was there to show for everybody. It's a little over the top from my perspective. I'll be candid. So we can certainly discuss this. I'd like to get all your feedback on this too. But when you look at the wing on this thing, which I'll try to pull up here, tell me that isn't a Batmobile.
Yeah, I mean, we all complained about the Swan necks. That looks like a 919 Le Mans car, kind of centered dorsal fin thing.
Yeah.
And
How the
obviously,
hell do you see out the back of it? I mean,
well, I
is
think
there
they
a
obscured
camera or something.
I think the whole back is obscured. But as
It
I
is.
said in
That's
one
all
of the
carbon fiber.
as I said
That's
in
all
one of the
carbon
Gumball
fiber.
movies, if you're fast, you don't need to see what's behind you. So, no,
What do you guys?
that's cool. It's cool in the extreme fashion. The irony is, and I'm a big fan of I don't know what you call them, wheel spats or those covers. I think the sad thing is when I was in Germany, like I said, I saw one of these and they were on the track, and I truly believe the people in Germany and Europe will buy this package to go do the things it was meant to do, drive the Nürburgring, do tracks. But sadly, the ones, if they can, I don't even know if they can come to the US, but if you can order the package, the Manti package to the US, I have a feeling it is just going to be a cars and coffee show, which to me makes the car look absolutely ridiculous. Not
Yeah.
in a parking lot versus on a track. But that's my 2 cents.
I didn't think a lot of it when I saw it, and I was listening to the guy who I think was the owner of the car, and he was kind of holding court around this car, talking to people about the car. Wasn't clear. I couldn't tell what his plans were for the car. Had a sticker of 324 on it. That was another weekend event. I got notice, like everybody else probably did, that Porsche is bumping pricing. And unfortunately for me, that's going to impact my particular GT3 RS build as well. So another 12 grand just flew out of my pocket
You don't get
because of the
grandfathered in? You don't have like a
no,
locked-in? Oof.
nope, not until I'm not even sure when that happens. That's a great question because I do worry that I'm not sure if that even picked up the tariffs or not, but or the potential for tariffs. But at least as of now, my build has probably gone up to, I don't know, it's probably pushing 330, something like that at the moment.
Oof. So Casey, what did you do this weekend or anything fun car related?
So to get back on what you were saying, Dave, I put together a couple of deals for old clients this week at Porsche dealerships. At my buddy's Porsche dealership up in Hunt Valley, which is just north of Baltimore. Cars on the ground, I think, delivered before July 11th, or maybe it was even before the beginning of July, were not subject to tariffs. Keep in mind, I could be completely wrong. And this is just from my interpretation of what my clients are going through, and I help them negotiate deals and those sorts of things because I still like helping out my old people. But I did put together a deal on a Panamera that was inbound to the dealership, and they knew right off the top that once this car got delivered and they started rolling them out of the ports, I think on July 11th, those cars were going to be subject to tariffs. And every different Porsche, some of them carry the same percentage. Some of them do have different percentages. His Panamera, I think, was 3.5, 3.6%, something like that, similar to yours. And I have another buddy with a GT3 RS on order that had similar feelings. So I understand where you're coming from. But as I mentioned to you offline, being that you're getting the car for a reasonable amount, the $12,000, I know that it hurts, but you're still way ahead. You still got that lottery ticket. You just had to pay $4 for it versus $3. Um, I had an interesting conversation the other week. I had a guy come up to one of the facilities where I work on cars, and we were talking about Land Cruisers, and he was talking about getting a Land Cruiser and stuffing a big motor in it. And I had a conversation with him about how, the added torque to get up hills and such would be great. But if you look behind me, that's the Land Cruiser that my wife and I have lovingly restored over the last 10 years. It's a 1988 FJ62. It's awesome. I've talked about it here before. But the one great thing about these cars that I don't, and we live in such a busy world. I know maybe in Southern California, it's maybe a little bit more relaxed than, or at least I think you can, where my buddy lives in Hermosa Beach, I know it's a little bit more relaxed in certain places. But in the DC area, like people are moving 100 miles an hour all the time, driving on shoulders of the road, being crazy. But when you're in the Land Cruiser and you realize that you have, however much it weighs, and it's got maybe 160 horsepower, maybe 200 foot-pounds of torque, it's a vibe. You get in the car, you put it in drive. We got a 62, the difference between 60s and 62s. 60s had round lights. That's the easiest way to tell the difference, but 60s were also carbureted and manuals. I didn't want any of that. I've got enough carbureted manual cars in my life. So the 62 is you just put the thing in drive. The automatic transmission literally sucks all the horsepower out of the car, but you just go. You just
Yep.
go. You just chill. It's like, I mean, I know that it's not a convertible, but I bet driving this thing with the windows down up the
Yep.
PCH with some good music playing would just be a tremendous experience. And that is something I did in cars. I went out and I washed my Land Cruiser, put up an Instagram reel on Sunday about mindfulness because I watched a James Pumphrey video about how taking care of your cars is like a great summer vibe. Awesome video. I'd recommend checking it out on speed.co. But for me, it was all about just laying back, not having to go fast, literally doing the opposite of what that GT3 RS buyer did that Dave was talking about earlier. Who knows? Maybe he drives his car as fast as I drive my Land Cruiser. And on that note, Dave, I would tell you that if he drives that car for its intended purpose, power to him, but he probably isn't. But all my clients that I have that are race car drivers, like GT3 Cup drivers, they always want the newest, latest technology that can get them half a second at the racetrack. So if that half a second costs you $100,000 and that's important to that guy, power to him.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, what about
Yeah.
you? You had a nice weekend, I think,
Ye-
right?
Yeah, yeah. We did an R group event, which we did do an R group event about a month ago, which is our annual Treffen for the whole kind of think of PCA parade for our group. And for those who don't know, our group is a group that's been around for 25 years. I've been a member for almost all of them, and it's to celebrate hot rods, sport, modifying 911 air-cooled culture. And I
Before it
brought,
was cool. It started before it was cool, right? And
yeah, it
before
was
the
sort of
outlaws were cool.
it was the counterculture to the Q-tip and wine and cheese sort of perspective of Porsche clubs. And And it was really fun. And they were kind of the outliers, the outlaws, the Wild West. The funny thing is, what was definitely counterculture is now mainstream to some degree. Um, and it was just a quick in Morro Bay, North, we call it North meets South. Our group has been a California thing. It's spread across the country, but it's always been in Northern California and Southern California. We come together once a year. So we sort of revitalized that with a quick Sunday through Tuesday stay in Morro Bay. We had, I would say, about 50 cars. Unlike Treffin, the guy organizing said, "Hey, it's going to be hot on part of the drive. We're talking 105 degrees. If you want to bring something else, go for it." And so I used the opportunity to bring my 996 GT3. It was actually perfect for the event. I've wanted to drive it on some of the roads we took. I did a great drive. We went over Highway 33 out of Ojai through Santa Barbara, inland from Santa Barbara. Haggerty had rated that road the best road in America last year in their Haggerty magazine. And this is my friend Tom Riding's 96433 turbo with a IMSA built motor for it. And actually, it's funny because all those colors, everyone thinks it means something else, but what it actually is the colors of all the IROC cars.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and his license plate says IMSA DNA. But him and I 33 is a great road, but especially on a Sunday morning, mid-morning, it's often crowded. People going to there's camping places, there's streams and rivers. But I think it was so hot, like I said, it was over 100 degrees, and him and I were definitely hitting alleged triple-digit speeds, and it was just the two of us in the front of the group. And you know how it is when you go on a drive and you just find the rhythm, the groove. You're with the right person, the right road. And it was the first time my dad had been in my GT3. He has a 996 turbo, so he was interested to see how it felt. But then, when we got to Morro Bay, and by the way, when I took this photo, it was at Buckhorn, Kuyama, which is a vintage motel that's been restored. But when I took this photo, it was literally 106 degrees on my car thermometer. And, very California, when we got to Morro Bay, the temperature was 58, and it's
Oh,
right along the coast,
Wow.
and it was
yeah.
beautiful. And then most of the people didn't want to go back in the heat, but me and my friend Henry, who owns Schneider Auto House, he's German, so he's got a 82 or 83 SC Targa. He took the roof off, and we drove up Fort Hunter Liggett, which is a crazy road to the Mission, up there in the military base, and it's in literally 15 miles from PCH, almost where it's closed down because of the rock slides, to this Mission was probably 300 turns, second gear, kind of bumpy. And the temperature went from 58 when we entered from PCH to 106 right here.
Wow.
So it was definitely diverse, wild, but it was a good time. And it was sort of a fun, quick, kind of the last rally before. I mean, no one's going to do a rally right now. It's just too freaking hot. And more PCH is about it, but now it's getting crowded with, tourism. So that's what we did. We had a great time. And since we're going to be kind of a short show today, let's skip right to it. And if there's any inventory business updates someone wants to talk about, something new, I know Casey, you mentioned something about your client getting something new, or no, sorry, maybe it was Dave. But well, let's
I
start
just
with
pulled in nothing special here. Again, not a. I think we all are working on some 996 stuff. I have a car I just took in on consignment here, which is a very very nice '02 cabriolet, a manual car, silver black combo, obviously with nice top. That we did the IMS bearing on this car previously here at Sunderworks. Really nice looking sport design wheels from the era, and great car. I actually drove that car most of the weekend just to be sure it was solid, shakedown. If I'm going to rep it and talk about it on BAT, I want to be able to know the car is what I think it is. But this car is very, very nice. 44,000 original miles. The guy's owned it since 18, and I think he's put 1,800 miles on it in that period of time. So not a car with a lot of use from the current owner, but he's kind of aging out of it and he needs to move out of it. So there's my addition for the week.
Nice. And so is that going to be listed for sale, or is it going to be on Bring a Trailer,
It's
or
going to be on Bring a Trailer. Yeah,
okay,
they just
so
accepted it yesterday. I've just got to now just go through the rest of the checklist stuff.
fun stuff. And in the theme of 996 week, Casey, we talked a little bit about this. I really like your car. It's definitely a sleeper. Tell us more about that. It's the 996.1.
Yeah, it's funny that we're all going to talk about 996 cabs. A client reached out to me that's had a bunch of GT cars, good referral. But he has this car that he's owned since 2005. In 2017, the car started popping a bunch of lights and he got worried about it. And of course, everybody reads about IMS bearing failures and those sorts of things. This car didn't suffer from that, but he sent the car to, I don't know what it was called, Air Flat Six, whatever, air cooled LN, something or other. Basically,
That's
Jake
not
Raby.
Raby?
Yeah,
Jake Raby.
Jake.
Yeah, yeah.
He sent the car to Jake Raby in Georgia, and they put a hot rod 3.8 liter motor in it. And I briefly drove it yesterday. It is really cool. We talked about it. It's a rare color for 996. It's arena red. It has, I think, Savannah beige interior inside of it, or sand beige, one of those two. But it's got wood trim, so
Yeah.
it's awesome old man spec.
It's the octogenarian special Palm Springs cruising with a
So it
sleeper.
it's a perfect Porsche Club of America like member purchase car because it's under the radar. It's interesting. It's and it's got this hot rod motor in it that I think is going to do great. But the motor costs $25,000. I
Yeah,
mean
they're
that's
expensive.
it's a really expensive engine, and of course those folks are at the forefront of this is what you're supposed to do to 996 engines to keep them living. So that's one that I'm working through currently. It's going to go through detail. It's got a couple of issues that I'm going to do my best to remedy, but I don't like putting lipstick on pigs. And then the other thing I did was I've got a good client that has a whole bunch of really cool race cars.
Oh, hold on.
But
Before you go off that,
yeah,
just a quick question, because I'm always curious about the Raby motors. Um, the character of that motor, if you've driven it, is it like a 997S motor, which is a 3.8, or is it kind of 996 GT3 vibe? I mean, what does it feel like? At least the butt dyno.
I'm gonna have to report back.
Okay.
Literally, I drove it. I inspected it in the morning, and then he dropped it off later in the day. But if you notice, the cooler car in this picture is a stick shift 2011 GTS, which to me is insane. What an awesome car! And I said to the guy, I walked up to his garage and I looked at it, and I was like, oh my goodness! Like, I was like, I only think I sold like three or four of these when they were new
Yep.
because they didn't ship these cars to the United States.
No, well, no one ordered them.
They sent them everywhere else too. I mean, they just cut allocation. It was in that really cruddy time.
Yeah.
And what a great car though.
We'll have to one day revisit that because I do agree it's a great car, but the good big question is it a $120,000 experience for, I mean, GTS manual 997.2s that are in good shape, good color. You're talking 115, 120, 130, 135. I've seen it paint to sample even in the 140. And then you got to ask yourself, is that if I had 115 to $140,000, would I buy that? Or would I buy, like Dave says, a 991.1 GT3, a 997.1 GT3? But anyway,
Yeah, good, great,
um,
great. That'll be a topic for next week. I
yeah,
guess
yeah,
people chime in with your opinions on this, but yeah, we'll definitely revisit this because it's a special car for sure,
it
but
is.
that's a lot of
It's the
money.
equivalent of a 997 GT3 Touring, I guess, right? No wings, no.
Well,
Yeah,
it's got a 9A1 motor in it, which means it's the DFI motor. So it's not the engine is it's basically a power kit 997 second gen S motor, but I mean, it's got center lock wheels. It's a wide body car. I mean, there's pros and cons, but we'll talk about that next
Yeah,
week.
I think our audience would love a drill down on 997 purchasing, because I can tell you from my end, we're getting ready to have a 997.2 base Carrera manual come up for sale, and I get that question all the time. And I do love the cars, but value wise, hard to say. Just really quick, and we'll kind of move along. In the spirit of 996, cab is yours a cab, Casey?
Yep.
Oh, great. So they're all three cabs. So I have a cab, and I like to call this cab the kitchen sink 996 turbo. It's an '04. It's got 9,000 miles. It's it's what I like to call quadruple black, because it's black interior, black exterior, black soft top, and also a black hard top. It was literally ordered with almost every option, $181,000 MSRP in 2004, which, by the way, equates to about 200 and or sorry, $310,000 ish today, which ironically, if you take a Turbo S, new Turbo S, and order it with decent options, you kind of get about the same MSRP. I mean, this one was ordered with X50 ceramic brakes. The funny thing, we like to call it, it's supple leather. You can call it,
I hated leather.
Yeah.
but there was a
you
big,
don't need to say what you were going to say. We got you.
yeah, but here's the thing about that leather. My dad has a 996 Turbo. He ordered the same leather. He likes really nice leather, and the way Porsche built it was like this was an upgrade leather, and he was in a dilemma because in that time, if you wanted supple leather, no sports seats. You had to choose one or the other. And I think time has said that the sports seat option was probably the better option. But anyway, this went live today on our site, and I have yet to do a good drive, but maybe this weekend we're going to do a drive down to Palm Springs, and I will leave the hard top on and have the air condition cranking.
What's the ticket on that one, Paul?
Oh, this one is, I want to say, $98,000 or $99,000,
That's a deal.
which
Yeah,
is a
that seems
deal
like
for
a
a
good
19.
price.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. All right, so the next subject we want to talk about, I think we're going to do this or that. It seems to be that everyone enjoys this or that, where we basically look at couple bring a trailer auctions, or if you have something else besides bring a trailer, and decide which of the two cars we each would want. And they're going to be roughly the same price, maybe very different cars. But if you had X amount of dollars to spend, would you buy this or would you buy that? So Dave, are you ready to talk
No,
about?
actually, have Casey go first because I think he's got his picks ready and I don't. So
All right, Casey, you want to go first?
Yeah, so one of my good customers from back in the day and a friend of the podcast here, a guy named Michael Cosgrove, sent me an interesting car. And it was actually, I think Doug DeMuro did something about this as well. But basically, the cars that he's comparing are as follows. Number one is a 1973 BMW 3.0 CSL Batmobile. You can see from the pictures that it pretty much follows your general expectations of a Batmobile. It's silver. It's got the M coloration on it. It's got the big wing on the back of it. Really big, really big restoration on the car. Car sold for $381,000 plus fees. So that is the older version of something that's going to be in this comparison. And then let me switch to the other car here. I'm not as fast as Paul is. The other car, which sold for more, believe it or not, is a. Let me pull up the exact thing. If Tim was here, he'd be screaming because he's like, "Oh my gosh, I know what that is." It's a 22 Ferrari F8 Spider with 1,600 miles on it. And this car sold for $391,000 plus fees. And honestly, I was a little bit surprised. I don't spend a whole lot of time on cars and bids, to be honest. So I don't really see the type of vehicles that transact there. But this to me seems like two kind of really expensive cars to transact on that website. Call me just naive or whatever, but I don't spend a whole lot of time digging through what they have listed. So I guess, you have an iconic. I know that Paul, your buddy, Mr. Zuckerman, has a Batmobile. I'm not
Yep.
sure what experience you have with that car. I've driven F8s. I've driven 488s, and F8's basically a facelifted version of a 488. Cool car. I've got a lot more time in pistas than I do the normal ones, but they got to be similar, I would think. Paul, what would you pick?
Honestly, neither. We just had a BMW CSL. It's called the Ultra Lightweight, the very first generation. I've owned an E9. I've sold several of them, and they suffer from the syndrome of they're just too pretty. They're so pretty that the driving experience is a guaranteed letdown. They are heavy cars, relatively heavy still for that era. They are big. Every time one of my Porsche clients, everyone wants an E9 because they're, BMW CS, CSLs, CSI. They're so pretty. But then when you drive them, they always say, like, is that it? And that's why outside of the collectible CSLs and Batmobiles, most of them have a 3.5 liter swap, a 5-speed manual. They do all these things to actually breathe life into them. But from a chassis standpoint, Carmen built a pile of crap. It is a rust bucket, a nightmare to restore. And then, I sold one a couple of years ago for my friend. He did a full S54 BMW E46 CSL swap, European 6-speed manual, the CSL engine. It was probably 360 to the wheels. That car boogied. And I swear, if you hit the right bump in the turn with throttle, the car felt like it was going to split in two. I mean, that chassis couldn't handle it.
What was the steering like? Did they change specifics regarding how the steering
This
rack or
the
whatever?
steering, I don't know if they did. The steering was good, definitely better than a 2002, which was a steering box. But it was not as good as a Porsche, and it was still a big car. And ironically, the race cars you saw racing, for the most part, they were barely a CSL anymore. They were just a tube chassis. And going back to that one you had, I know Cars and Bids was like, hey, we beat Bring a Trailer. CSLs are a very funny thing, and the way to tell sort of the most collectible E9 is like the one that was on that screen, which was Danny McKenna's car of McKenna Porsche, McKenna BMW, all that. That car, you can tell by the three struts in the wing. So the first CSL Batmobiles had only two supports, the outside supports. When you went to the later, you'll see that middle support. Go ahead, Casey. Can
Here,
you
I'll
see it?
talk for a second. Yeah, so you can see here. Yeah, you can see it there behind yeah, right in the middle.
So that middle support is usually the sort of telltale sign it's the end of the generation. They made like 52 of those cars. They were homologated for racing. They bumped displacement from 3 liters to 3.2. Maybe on a good day they made 240, 250 horsepower, nowhere near what the race cars were doing, which was like almost double that. And they still weighed, even as that configuration, 2,700 pounds. Paul probably has the best in the world, and I wouldn't be surprised if his transacted closer to 600,000. Personally, I think this one did okay. I think good ownership, okay color, not one of the wow, yellow, orange colors. Sort of yellow and oranges are the most desirable. Then there's Tiaga green, which is cool. Then there's the Fjord blues, and then you get to silver. But yeah, cool car. But between the two, I hate Ferraris and I hate that car. So
So keep
I
the
will
300,
donate my
400
money to
grand, Paul.
I'll donate my money to the SPCA to take care of animals.
Is that basket handle on the roof there on all those?
Yes, and it's horrible. There's so many things I just don't like about that car. But I'm in the minority. They sell for hundreds of thousands of
Yeah.
dollars. So my opinion is mine, but it's probably wrong. So anyway, Dave, which would you pick, the
You know,
Ferrari
I,
or the
I'm
CSL?
I'm in your camp as well, Paul, in terms of I'm just not a big Ferrari fan. But if I had to take between those two, and I was going to plunk, close to $400,000 down, I would probably take the F8. Um, modern car. gorgeous car. Again, not my particular style, but it has a lot going for it, obviously. And it seems to 710 horsepower, twin turbo. I'm sure it has plenty of giddy up for the 15 minutes a week that I probably would drive it because I would be afraid of putting miles on it. And I could just go, sit on a stool with a can of beer, or I should say, champagne, and just look at my car and hope
Perfect.
hope the market doesn't shift.
Yeah. So we've only got like 6.5 minutes and we're going to have to blaze out. So we'll speed up through this. Dave, what do you got for this or that?
Okay, well, I think we can reset too, Paul, so we can maybe extend past here.
Okay.
But I'm going for the orphan cars that we love to love. So this car for me, the minute it came out, I loved this car. This is a 2011 Saab 9.5. And this particular car, uh, shockingly, super low miles. Now, this was the last of the cars. Hang on one second. What did I just do to myself here?
But GM still own this was GM's product by this point. It's no
Correct.
longer Saab. Okay.
Correct. But it still went away instantly. I mean, this was the last car they put out before they shut it all down. Uh, I think of the Saabs, and I've owned two. I've had an 01 93 and a '08 93 Aero. And I've always found Saabs to be these little sleeper, wonderful cars. And when this one came out, they were always funky looking. And while this one's still funky looking, I think it was probably one of the more attractive Saabs that they ever released. This car sold for like $25,000 on BAT as I dug back through it. Not exactly this particular spec or picture, but I couldn't pull the BAT picture in. So I got that one versus, there we
And
go.
how many miles were on that one?
It was like 40,000.
Okay.
Okay. And then a car that we touched on just a little bit, which made me kind of think about it. And this was kind of a twin to the A8 in the period. This one's an '04 VW Phaeton W12. And
Oh baby.
this car sold for more money, surprisingly. This car sold for like 35 grand. And it had, again, middle 40s on the mile. Um, Also an attractive car, right? A weird choice for VW to bring that car to North America, though. And
Yep.
I've had one or two friends that have had these briefly and have just screamed bloody murder about the inability to get the thing serviced. So um, those are my two choices. So two cars you can't get serviced. Which would you pick, boys?
Uh, I'll let you go first, Casey.
I think I might be like one of those same ones that we just did a minute ago, where I give the money to the SPCA.
Oh, come on.
I had a neighbor up the road that had the Saab. They actually just switched. They switched from the Saab like 2 years ago to one of those Volvo V60 Polestars with the Olin suspension, one of the wagons. Really great looking car. They made the right move. But I had a buddy that worked in Jacksonville as a VW tech, and he would tell me about the those W8 motors where you'd have, like, if the torque converter went bad or something like that, it was an engine out service.
Yep.
There's not a chance in the world I would touch that car. So I would have to pick the Saab.
So I actually came up with a cheat code that's even better. I would pick the Phaeton because I absolutely love that car. I would take the money from not picking one of your cars, Casey, and I would build a runway of maintenance to take care of the W12. I love those cars, and because I'm a sadist, I probably would love, that early generation Maybach when Mercedes built the Maybach as a separate division, and now those are kind of cheap and they're just ridiculously luxurious and difficult. Imagine opening the garage, you see a Maybach and a Phaeton parked side by side.
It
How
would be
cool would that
it
be?
would be a straight up, like, what year was the Phaeton? That would have been like, it would
Oh,
have been a
four.
Oh
straight up
four.
like
Yeah.
2005, like 50
Yep.
Cent music video or something like that.
Yeah.
It'd be really great.
Yeah, and
That,
and it'd have mechanics, gathering around in a candle vigil, trying to help me survive ownership of those two cars. No, I adore the Phaeton. I know it is a nightmare. I'm sort of attracted to needlessly complicated ownership. I mean, hell, my daily driver, two choices are a 928 and a Jaguar S-Type R. So like I'm used to pain. But anyway,
But you don't live
let's
far from the shop either. So fortunately,
no.
they barely warm up before you get there. So
It's a nightmare. But anyway, in a second we'll go jump in. Oh, so Phaeton for me. You'll pick nothing, Casey. Dave, did you
I'll pick the
I'm
Saab.
I'm I'm picking the
Saab?
Saab actually. I
Okay.
I think the Saab is fantastic. I think there's probably, although certain parts, I mean, if you broke something like a headlamp or something, you're screwed.
Yeah.
But I think there's probably still ways to get that car serviced. I still think it's a gorgeous looking car. And it's a lot of car for the money right now. You can buy those super cheap because nobody wants to buy a Saab anymore.
Yep.
Saab's one
Yep.
of those brands that just sort of, it's so sad that it just went away because it's such a peculiar brand, but really interesting, fun cars to drive. And you get in some of the Aeros and so on,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're amazingly sporty cars, really quite good.
Yep.
Yeah, the
They're
one,
they're
yeah.
they're a Northeast. I think their base is Northeast buyers. You know, college
Yeah,
That's probably
professor
fair.
Northeast.
Yeah, the one
Very
thing
fair.
that I really like about the Phaeton is the C-pillar treatment. I think it looks a lot better than the comparable era Audi A8. But anyway, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
All right, so we're now on to the last of this or that. And, as Dave mentioned briefly, for my 2 mile commute, a daily drive, which is kind of a ridiculous conversation. I don't know why. I love the idea of daily drivers. I mean, yes, there's the Lamborghini and the Porsche I want, all the reach goal stuff, but like maybe it's because they're attainable. But as I mentioned, I have my 928 automatic 84 daily driver, love it, and I've got my 2003 Jaguar S-Type R, love it. And what I love about them is they're really comfortable, they're great cars. They're nowhere near as expensive to maintain as the community thinks they are. And when I go somewhere, especially in my Jaguar, no one knows what that car is anymore. I mean, that car has disappeared from the landscape. And with 400 horsepower, 400 pound-feet of torque in a sort of vintage retro Mark II vibe. And by the way, the funny thing about that car is when you get underneath it, the amount of BMW logos on parts is insane. Transmission, the people think it's a Ford product. Uh, it was actually a LS unibody, and then the rest was all engine from Coventry, etc. But anyway, back to my daily driver, or choice, this or that. I love wagons. Coming back from Europe, the number of wagons I saw, I just love small wagons. And I went on such a deep dive on the V60 Polestars. We started with the bitchin' wagon really in the US, the 850R, and then it became this V70R, and then there was a bit of a hiatus, and then this is the last time Polestar. It was kind of that AMG where Volvo bought Polestar, which was a race division. It became kind of like their AMG M Motorsport division, and then quickly it got spun off into an electric car, which was a shame. So this 2016 V60 Polestar in what a cool color, rebel blue paint. Just the name of it sounds bitchin'. They only came with a 6-speed automatic transmission, at least not a CVT, but not a dual clutch, probably the one hit against it. They were only out for a few years. This one has 102,000 miles on it. They, as if anyone who's ever sat in a Volvo, I mean, the seats are so good. They are the most comfortable seats in the world. The dash, let me see if I'll blog it. The dash is kind of a little bit of play school, Lego kind of dorky dash. I wouldn't say it's the best, but I mean, look at that car.
Yeah,
Small
it's great
wagon.
looking.
You mean
Mhm.
you just drift in the snow? I just absolutely adore the wagon. So this one, I think the I think these cars have started to go up, sadly, because this car just sold with 102,000 miles, really clean car for 20, let's see, after it was 28,750, so just over 30,000 with fees on Bring a Trailer just a couple days ago. I would say this car 3 years ago was probably 10 grand less, which is kind of killing me.
Wow.
Jason Camisa does a really great review of one of these. I've seen a 50,000 mile one sell in the high 40s, which at that point, is it worth it? My other choice is, oops.
Diametrically opposed to the first one.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you
Um,
could not have picked a more different car.
Those
Well,
are
you could have
two
picked
very
like an
different
electric. You
animals.
could have picked like a Nissan Leaf. That'd be about the only thing more different than that.
but like, I'm sorry, but this is how my brain works. I'm looking at daily drivers, and so I have a couple goals with daily drivers. Number one, obviously, be able to drive through LA in traffic and comfortable and air conditioning and so forth. I don't have to take kids are grown up, don't have to do that. I only need really two seats. My wife has a Volvo XC60, so we can haul stuff with that. But the other thing is on Fridays, I drive up to the mountains to Good Vibes Breakfast Club. Once in a while, I'll do like a half day rally. And I kind of have this mantra that I want all of my cars, including my daily, to be able to be used on on a rally or a car tour and be cool, be different, be comfortable, be fun. And I look at these. Sorry, and this car is a 2016 Jaguar F-Type Coupe 6-speed. Um, it's Jaguar makes a great looking coupe. The only sad thing is the F-Type only came with the V6, which I want to say is a supercharged 3-liter V6. It was probably somewhere around 350 horsepower. By the way, the Volvo was like about 300 horsepower. Um, they they're not neither one of them is very light. Um, but in British Racing Green, and this one has some goofy modified wheels, and also really comfortable seats. Look at that interior
Yeah.
and a 6-speed manual. Um, this is an interesting presentation. The guy put the original shift knob in view on the center console, so you could see what his you
Double
could
shift knob.
yeah. So this
It's
car
transfer case.
Yeah.
exactly. It's your FJ62. But this one is just sold recently on Bring a Trailer, 69,000 miles, sold for with fees $34,000. I think these cars are a hell of a buy. They're beautiful looking. They sound great. I would say if I was going to buy one of these, and I've really thought about it because I think from a value standpoint, they're really good. I I kind of go, do I the V8 with the automatic might be a better usable car in LA, but I've heard the manuals are good. I don't know if trading off for the V8 is worth it or to keep the V6 with the manual. But if I had to seriously pick between these two cars, I don't even know which one I'd pick. Um, I'd probably pick the Jaguar. But anyway, Dave, what would you pick?
I got to go with you there. Now, I loved the Volvo, the color on that Volvo, and I just love the shape of those cars. I mean, I just like Volvos in these little smaller wagons, the A3s, excuse me, C3s. I mean, those are just all super sweet looking cars, and that color is fantastic. I always like that wheel package on that particular car. But having said all that, the Jag is a hell of a car. That's a very attractive car. I prefer the coupe to the cabriolet. Actually, I think the coupe is a more functional car,
I
and
agree.
I like the styling on the coupe as well. It's certainly smaller than some of the older Jags, um, E-types and some and those sorts of things. But I just think it's a nice looking car. Jaguar always does really well with coach work. I don't even mind the wheels on that one, Paul. The wheels don't really turn me off that much.
Well, I went and
And
looked
I
at
love
some
the
other
British
ones.
Racing Green.
Yeah,
British
of course.
Racing Green, that's the only way to buy it.
Yeah, if it was black or anything else. Actually, I saw some pictures with the silver factory wheels, and it does look better. Also, probably what makes edge me out on the Jaguar is, you know, they're both six cylinders. One's a V6 and one is a straight six longitudinal. They couldn't sound more different. I think the things that edge me out for the Jaguar is the sound of that V6 is pretty rad, and I think with a good exhaust, it would sound even better. And I agree also with Jason Camisa. I If it's all-wheel drive, I want a rear-wheel drive, all-wheel drive bias car, and the Volvo is a front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive bias car, and and ultimately a coupe rear-wheel drive, power. You know, I agree. Tough decision. Where are you going with this, Casey?
I listened to that podcast, The Smoking Tire, the other day and felt similarly. I think Matt's mom had the car that's behind you, right? Or one that's
No,
very
so
similar to it.
oh yes, yes, she had probably the automatic. I think it
Yeah.
might even been earlier, a little earlier. I'm not sure.
So I'm a huge wagon guy. I owned a B8 wagon, A4. I've had a bunch of A4 S4s. We'll have to have like what makes daily drivers, like what is the requirements of a daily driver for us. That'll be another podcast. But the car behind me, which is pretty interesting. I saw this yesterday. I was getting lunch. It's a Volkswagen Golf All-Track, something like that. But it was hopped up. It had giant APR front brakes on it. It was very lowered, as you see. But when you pulled up that picture of the Volvo, it made me think of this. And then, of course, my neighbor up the street with the V60 Polestar as well. So I do really love wagons. But one of my favorite driving experiences that's still seared in my mind, which was about 15 years ago, a family friend had a Aston Martin Vantage V8 stick. It was one of the early ones from, the newer generation of car, but it sounded awesome. It kind of sounded like a 5-liter Mustang. It just had a really cool line of sight out of it, and it had a really great sense of occasion. And that to me reminds me a lot of the Jaguar that you're showing. So I would probably lean towards the Jaguar as well if it gave me 50% of what that Aston Martin did. Of course, I don't think the noise is going to be there, and I put silver wheels on it. But other than that, I mean, I think that Jaguar checks a lot of boxes, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but that would be my choice.
Nice.
What was the original sticker on those cars? Because they've definitely, Jaguars tend to fall right off the cliff too, depreciation wise.
Oh, they do. And which is what makes it attractive.
Yes, absolutely.
I was looking through to see, for instance, my S Type R, and I'll tell another story about that down the road. My S Type R, I want to say, was in 2003, 75,000 MSRP. I bought it with 90,000 miles in 2010. For how much do you think I bought it? 90,000 miles, and now it's 7 years old. It was now a two-owner car, original paint. I'd sold it for the first owner. What do you think that was now, granted, 7 years old, not too long, but it was also 2010. The world was in economic downfall. Truly the pit. And going to Dave's thing of depreciation, what do you think that was worth?
11 grand.
Yeah. What about you, Dave?
I was going to say 20.
So, Dave, that would be the correct thinking, but here's how the math works. You take the comparable product, like an E55 would be the comparable Mercedes, and they're half of that. And the Mercedes is like 30% or 40% less than the BMW, which would be the M5. So at that time, an M5 was like 30,000. The E55 was 20,000, and the Jaguar was about 10. And
Oh, Casey,
I
winner,
think
winner.
I got it for 6,500, needed some work, big surprise. Put my, 2 grand into it, and there you go. So I'll put my
That's a hell
face
of a
back.
lot of car. That's a hell of a lot of car for under
Yeah. And
$10,000.
I've now had it for, 15 years. It's got 140,000 miles on it. Every repair is like Sophie's Choice. Is this worth do I kill the car? I mean, last year was the biggest expense because a supercharger went,
Right.
and doing everything I could do to make that is inexpensive. Mechanic take it out. I drove it to the valley, gave it to an Eaton supercharger specialist. And it's so funny. I hand it to him, and he's like, I have not seen one of these in a decade. People just threw the car away. The car's probably worth 4 to 5 grand right now, and the supercharger bill was 4,200.
So I had a funny story. I worked at when I in college in Canton, Ohio, I worked at a small dealership that had a bunch of different brands, and that's where I really grew my love for Porsche. I think I talked the story about they wouldn't let me drive the Mark IV R32, but they had a Jaguar dealership as well. And when your car was new, Paul, they would come in, and I don't know if you ever saw one like before, right when it came off the boat, but they were covered with this stuff that protected the paint because it was almost like they shipped them with this cosmoline on them that
Yep.
was all over the entire car. And then they sent you this jug of stuff that you mixed like 50-50 with water that never took it off. So you had to like double up on the amount that you dumped on the car. And then when that didn't work, use brake cleaner. So that was my experience with those cars, was getting that cosmoline stuff off the car, and you never got all of it off.
No.
No,
No,
but
you're right.
it's a really cool car. I love the design. That's when Jaguar really cared to pay homage to their original designs, which is a thing I really hope they come back to someday.
Yeah, I do too. They're all based on the recent controversy with design, we just want something normal looking. All right, so surprisingly, we all choose the Jaguar. I think you, Casey, came up with this subject, and I really liked it because when you came up with it, I was in Germany and I was just bathing and marinating in, supercars and German builds. But you talked about homologated cars that became street cars because I think we talked about the 963. And so why don't I let you kick it off, Casey, with what your favorite homologated street car was? And did I get that right in terms of?
I think, yeah, you're great. So I work with a bunch of, however odd this is to state, I work with a bunch of homologation cars now. Probably the most apparent of them is the one that's behind me, but I'll jump to another one real quick first. I'll pull a Chris Cooper from the Chris Harris podcast, but the NS, or what is it, NGT 993 Club Sport, was the N. It's called a 993 Club Sport to most people, but it's called an NGT because it was designed to homologate for Group N and Group GT race, ADAC GT racing in the 90s, which is a pretty amazing car. And if Paul, have you driven one of those?
No, I've just driven a 993 Touring.
Yeah,
And did they also do a 964 NGT or
they
N?
did.
Okay.
Yeah, but I will tell you that I think that the 993 is a bit more special because they did some trickery with the transmission and the flywheel as compared to a basic or a touring 993, and the car really rips. It
Hmm.
is a one of, I mean, I'm assuming a 993 RSR is even more fun,
Yeah.
or a Super Cup, but I've not driven either of those. But I would tell you that 993 RS NGT Club Sport is about as good as a factory air-cooled car gets. But the car that I'm picking is, and it's one that I'm very familiar with, is the one behind me. It is a 1981 924 GTS Club Sport. So in the early 80s, in order to run Group 4 rally, uh, Porsche created a whole bunch of, well, not a whole bunch, a number of Carrera GT um, 924s. And a 924 Carrera GT basically looks fairly similar to the one that you see behind me. It had the rear wheel arches, it had the styled fenders in the front that were very similar to what ended up on a 924, and it had the big scoop in the hood. The car that you see behind me is the final evolution of that car, one of 15 that they built. It's got somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's got roughly a 2 liter uh, turbocharged four-cylinder. Even though it still has the scoop in the hood for the GTS Club Sport, they moved the intercooler into the front of the car. It's got the Lexan in headlights, the doors, the front fenders, and the hood, and the front bumper, if I'm not mistaken, are all made of fiberglass. It has a Lexan rear hatch, and it has an aluminum matter roll bar on the inside of the car with 935 lollipop seats, full 930 braking system, and it's super trick. And the coolest thing about this car is it shoots fire. Um, I don't drive a lot of cars that shoot fire, But this one, especially when it's not fully warmed up, and it's got a dog leg first gear, which is really awkward. But when you do that 2 to 3 shift, and if the car isn't fully warmed up, it pops and shoots fire out of the back, and it is awesome. And I'm a transaxle guy. I've never driven a 924 Carrera GT, which I'd love to just to see how it compares to this. I mean, this is like the most extreme version. This is like the guy that wants to say, I might try weed someday and then goes straight to like mainlining. Like that's what this car is when it comes to transaxle special cars. And this thing is a rocket. It was owned by a pretty prevalent Southern California Porsche race car driver that owns a whole lot of interesting cars like 935s and such now. His
It
first
wasn't. It
name starts
wasn't
with a
Jim.
T,
Oh, I would
and
say
his
Jim
last
Busby.
name's no. So I'll tell another story about Busby later, but no, this is I think this guy's more of a gentleman driver, but his initials are TP, and this car has
Yes.
3,000 kilometers on it. So it's nearly, I think Canepa has one with like 70 kilometers on it, but this car is awesome and is the one that I would tell you is currently my favorite homologation car.
The funny thing is when you pick that, I was kind of bummed because I wanted to pick that. That is one of my favorite cars. I would say, not my introduction to transaxle, but that car was my really the catalyst to make me want to get a transaxle car, a 944. And I a client friend of mine locally had one. We'd always be at the, concourses. This was like maybe 15, 20 years ago when they were a lot less money. And I was always confused because they had like 4 variations of this car that it was like a GTS, a GT. I can't remember in what the differences were, but for me it was box flares, Lexan headlights, and hood scoop. Like you had me at those three things, and that's
Yeah.
that's what I wanted.
Yeah,
But
so it started with the GT, which was the car that they used to homologate for Group 4, and then they made the GTS, which I think had 230 horsepower and a top mount intercooler, and then it went to the GTS Club Sport, which put the full cage in the car, moved the intercooler in the front, higher pressure, and different engine internals, if I'm not mistaken.
so that one you have there, the picture, that was the top variation.
It's
The
one of 15. Yeah,
And how many horsepower was it roughly?
270.
Do you know anything about weight?
It's not much. It's in the mid twos.
2,500. Great.
Yeah.
Well, great car. I do like it. Dave, I like your picture. Um,
Thank you.
and
Thank you. I'll give you more of my picture. Now this has got more backstory to it than just the car itself, which for those of you on YouTube watching, this is actually the picture from the day I believe that Porsche homologated or presented the 917 for homologation. And for me, the 917 is the epitome race car. It's at that inflection point for Porsche where they were deciding to go all in on racing based on some changes in rules, and they had to get these 25 cars built. My first employee here in Sunderworks, or at Sunderworks, was a guy by the name of Martin Stager. And I was scrambling to try to find one of the pictures I have that's kind of sits on my website now. If you go to my website at sunderworks.com, the background is a picture of those cars and those chassis being built. And in the background of this picture with a guy with his back to the photo is my guy, Martin Stager, who started as a Porsche intern back in the 60s and ultimately moved into the racing division and was building motors on these cars as well. So whenever you get him in front of a PCA meeting or any kind of event where he can talk, he's 75, 76 now. He is just a wealth of knowledge on this. So he told stories on this particular day of only roughly, I think about a third of those cars actually had no drivetrain on the day that they actually came to do the inspection. And as the story goes, the inspector was, which one would you like me to pick to look at the car, look over the car, and ballsy as they were, they go, well, you pick. And fortunately, they picked like the first car or second car. And so they didn't realize that none of these cars were finished still. And they went through and got the process taken care of. So I think it's just the epitome car. Now, these early cars were just horrible aerodynamically, lots and lots of accidents, terrible to drive. The aero was really, really bad. At some point, we probably got to get Martin on the show here as a guest, and he would tell some just fabulous stories about the drivers of that era, the Vic Elfers and people like that that loved these cars, but were holding on for dear life with their feet out over the front axles, hoping they didn't crash because the aero was really so bad on them. And Porsche was very opposed to wings really in this period. And so they had to mess around with the aero on this car quite a bit before it became the the Le Mans killer and the race car that we all love, as the 917.
Yeah, the night.
I had an interesting conversation with a client of mine that I was at, and I sent you guys a picture of a very significant race car in his collection the other day that we don't need to talk about. But he owned three 917s, and he drove them. And this was a guy that has owned like a race car with, I mean, Rothmans on the side, Martini on the side, Golf on the side. I mean, really all of them. And he said the 917 was the scariest thing that he's ever been in. He owned three different varieties of the car, and he said, I forgot the term that he used, but like the frames on them, they would pressurize them with air to see if were cracked. And then there were other cars that they actually ran oil through the frame of the car,
Yep.
which is like the scariest. So one side of you is a gas tank, and the other side of you is I don't know, I guess they're made of aluminum frame with air-cooled oil that's probably 200 degrees, 220 degrees. So if you leaned over and bumped it, I mean, even in a fire suit, it's probably, and imagine the heat radiating on the inside of the car. Can't
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah, they were lethal. And I remember I met Vic Elford about 20 plus years ago. And, I knew of him, but he was such a horsepower junkie that he was the guy when every driver said, no, I don't want to drive that thing. He was the guy that not only wanted to drive it, but he's like, can you crank up the power more? And he would talk about driving a 917 at night on the Mulsanne straight, hitting the kink and trying to adjust, when they had the turbocharged version, how much he had to do full throttle before the turn so the boost kicked in at the right point, and it was just absolutely terrifying. And he was just a glutton for that kind of power.
Jeez.
Yep. But anyway, my car, oops, let's see, does that come through? The car I picked for homologation is an 88, 89 CLK GTR Strassen version. The picture I presented is what made you fell in love with it. When you see a
And it
race
flies as
car,
well.
when you see, this is the race car version, when you see a race car taking off and flying through the air, and fortunately no one was killed. And by the way, Mercedes, this wasn't exclusive to Mercedes. Porsche also had some GT1s that were flying through the air. This was, when Aero was trying to catch up with horsepower. But that got me the attention of the CLK GTR, and then the street version, you know, just was so damn sexy. I mean, the Porsche had a sort of a street version of the GT1. It was good, but the street version of the CLK GTR, I think, looks so much like the race car. Um, they made a convertible version, which I thought was kind of ugly. But when you look at, let me, uh, look at the interior. I mean, they had me at plaid seats. That one doesn't have plaid seats, but check that out. Almost
Yeah.
like the old 300 SLR Gullwing seats. The steering wheel is the fuzziest suede Alcantara I've seen before. But I love the fact that when you look at the knobs, it is a Mercedes. It, probably has a shitty Becker radio. Um, it's got the knobs for the dials to turn. But look at the back end of that car. just so good. So, in these cars, I think it was 98, 99. I don't know what the production numbers of the cars were, but a 6.9 liter V12, 612 horsepower, 572 horsepower, sub 4 seconds, 0 to 60, because it was a 200 mile an hour plus top speed, had a 6 speed sequential gearbox, but they were heavy. How heavy do you think these cars were? Dave, you got a guess on the weight?
I'm going to say, I don't know, 3,500 pounds.
What do you got,
I was
Casey?
going to say 3,400. So right in that same vein.
3,406 pounds. You nailed
Jeez.
it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so you read that, you're like, wow, 7 liter V12 with 600 horsepower. Um, how is it they're not going faster than 3.8 seconds, 0 to 60? But they are heavy cars. I don't know anyone who's driven one on the street besides stuff you see, on YouTube and stuff like that. But I bet you compared to a GT1 or even the latest Porsche 96,
Three.
what was 963? I'll bet you this
The
is the most streetable, homologated, like really prototypey kind of car. The 917 street one was definitely barely a street car. So,
There was a video a couple of years ago. I think Henry Catchpole put it up. And if you guys haven't seen it, you need to look for it. But he teamed up with DK Engineering and I think he ran street versions of all three cars, but it was the McLaren F1, LM, whatever, a CLK GTR, and a Porsche GT1. And you guys should really try to find that. And
yeah.
actually, I don't think it was during the Le Mans race that he did the backflip, but I'm pretty sure Mark Webber did a backflip in one of those
Yep.
GTRs as well, which is pretty
Yeah,
wild.
I think you're right. He did that and he survived it. It was horrifying,
Yeah.
for sure. Anyway, well, I think we have three great choices: 917 CLK GTR and 924 GTS Club Sport. Boy, if it wasn't about money, I would take the 924 GTS Club Sport. But anyway, we've got a little bit of time left. Do you want to talk about, or Dave, you have something?
I do, because I just want to follow up on some of last week's conversation, or maybe it wasn't last week, maybe the week before. But we were talking about the daily driver, your quest for daily driver, and one of the cars that you were looking at is Cayenne. And I
Yes.
was just over the moon, obviously, because I'm a big Cayenne diesel guy. And
Yeah.
I had just bought this third, and this, if you can see behind me here, if you're watching again, this was a 13 Cayenne diesel, 140,000 miles on it. I'm sure you guys have all bought from auto auctions and so on and understand kind of the process of how they rate these cars when you're bidding and doing
Yep.
all this stuff online. Technically speaking, this car was what they would consider a green light car, meaning that it should have been, other than some disclosed items, should have been ready to go, fix a few little items that were disclosed, and then you could retail this car. Right at the moment with these kind of miles, this is probably a $14,000 car, maybe 14 to 19, something like that. This one had a really nice interior. I really liked the color combo. It was a green light car. I had a matching version of this exact same car already here that I use as my daily driver. So I brought this car in and it instantly was a nightmare. Instantly was not a green light car. I'll keep the story quick. Fortunately, this auction company, who will remain unnamed, was kind enough after we had a bit of a discussion to they're going to take the car back. But seller did not disclose that it had uh, an absolutely horrible transaxle. Excuse me, I'll think of it here in a minute. But every one of the
Oh,
CV
the
joints on this car,
transfer case.
transfer case.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that's what I was thinking of. Transfer case that was screaming when you'd get in the car and drive it down the road. So it was just not the dash was all peeled up on it. But this car, they said it had some surface rust. Oh my God, you got under the car. The entire suspension, every spring all the way around this car was rusted out. And so the lesson for me is A, don't buy any cars from the Northeast anymore. I'm not doing that. This car came out of Central New York, and that was a terrible decision because even surface for us out of Central New York, has a whole different meaning. And I grew up in Central New York, so I know all the salt and so on. But this was not a terribly expensive car. It wouldn't have really hurt if I'd had to stick with it. But these guys were good enough to say, okay, this really wasn't represented well. We're going to pull it out, and we'll take the car back, which is really unusual for most auction companies. So these guys actually kind of stepped up and took the car back. So
That
When
that
we,
is
yeah,
that is very rare. Good for them to do it. Because that sounds like a nightmare.
when
What were
we
you
talk
saying?
about, when we
40,
talk
I
about,
took it to the Porsche dealer. Sorry, I forgot this. This was a pretty important fact because they made me, in order to arbitrate the car, Porsche dealer came back. The cost to repair the car at the Porsche dealer, $44,000 was the number
Wow.
they came back with to fix this car. So, I wasn't expecting a new car, but I also wasn't expecting to spend $44,000 on a $14,000 car. So,
Wow, that's a bummer.
when we talk about daily drivers, and I'm sure you're going to launch into your love for the Cayenne diesel, I have a slightly different experience with the Cayenne diesel, being that I worked at the Porsche dealership during Dieselgate, where we had 10 of these stacked up that we couldn't sell for 18 months. We just put them in storage, and it was a really interesting story, but we don't have time for that today. When we talk about, we need to make daily drivers, because I didn't know what Tim's daily driver was until recently. When we get to daily drivers, we'll have to have a conversation about Cayenne diesels.
Absolutely. And on that note, I am putting a picture of a Plymouth Superbird with the most outrageous wing. We're not going to have time for it this week, but we have talked about to spoiler or not to spoiler. So, not a spoiler alert. We're going to be talking about spoilers on our next episode because I find this subject completely baffling, especially when we talk about Porsche spoilers. There's a whole weird argument about Porsche spoilers, and I want to get your guys' take, and hopefully some of you will put questions about spoilers and your thoughts on them. So I think on that note, great episode, guys. Hopefully Tim is not turned into a full hillbilly, and he'll be back and join us next week. So for that, see you next week.
Thanks, guys.